Exposed, incredible moment as Black Navy SEAL woman transforms pain into power in court. The courtroom buzzed, thick with the tension of a town at a crossroads, but all eyes were on Taylor. She strode in with an air that declared her strength, a proud veteran who had fought for her country and now stood ready to fight for her dignity. Her heart raced, wild memories of battle fueling her resolve. The whispers that had followed her through town tangled like weeds, but she was ready to carve a path through them. She was going to show them who she truly was. She was all too familiar with the comfort of home. The streets had once been her playground, her dreams articulated in the laughter of friends who cheered for her as she aimed for the stars. But today, the air looked different, laden with doubt and second-guessing. It felt like shadows crowded every corner, each whisper an echo of disbelief. A sense of dread curled around her stomach as she faced the trial ahead, not just for herself but for those like her, unseen and unheard. "Taylor's back," muttered a neighbor, eyes narrowed. What a shame to see her squandering her time in court. Those words hit harder than any bullet. Taylor clenched her fists, looking down at the wood grain of the witness stand, feeling the cool smoothness beneath her fingertips. This wasn't just about her job at the security firm, about the disgraceful dismissal that felt like a slap in the face. This was about the way her community had judged her narrative, despite her sacrifices and strength. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Taylor took the stand, her heart threatened to burst forth. She could feel the weight of 1,000 unspoken truths pressing against her chest. The ornate courtroom felt like a gladiator's arena where silence bore down heavy, thick. She looked at the jury and felt the shared pain of countless individuals who had been overlooked, people whose struggles intertwined with her own. In that moment, she closed her eyes and breathed deep. She would not bow down to this injustice. "Your Honor," she began, her voice steady despite the tremors of vulnerability. "I fought for my country, for the values we preach. But to come back home and face this, it shatters what I believed in." Murmurs swept through the audience, and she sensed their eyes flaring with awareness. Taylor's bravery radiated like a beacon, and she knew there was light at the end of this tunnel of despair. Tension tightened like a rope around her family too. Jamal, her younger brother, sat quietly in the back, wrestling with feelings she couldn't quite decipher. She caught his gaze moments before she spoke about being dismissed, and a sliver of concern shot through her. Their bond was fragile now, tangled in her achievements and his hesitations. Unbeknownst to her, Jamal had been hurting, standing in Taylor's shadow. What battles were he waging in the quiet depths of his heart? Taylor's words hung in the air, and she sensed change brewing beyond mere verdicts. Would the jury dare to recognize systemic bias that had festered for so long? As she stepped down, uncertainty swirled around her. A deeper battle was brewing, one not just for herself, but for collective recognition of bravery masked by prejudice. They needed to see that this fight was about each and every one of them. Would they respond? Would her moment of truth ignite a larger transformation? Taylor stepped away from the witness stand, her legs shaking slightly beneath her. She scanned the courtroom, trying to gauge the impact her words had made. The chatter was quieter now, almost reverent. Heads nodded subtly, and she sensed a shift, a stirring of awareness that had been absent before. Jamal stood up, finally leaving his corner in the back. His eyes locked onto Taylor's, filled with a mix of pride and something darker. Something unspoken hung in the air between them. She felt the urge to cross the space and embrace him, to let him know that she saw him, too. But she also knew that this was about so much more than just their sibling bond. It transcended their own experiences. It was about community. The judge called for a recess, and the rattle of chairs filled the room. Taylor felt her heart flutter as people began to rise. They whispered to one another, some exchanging glances with her that held traces of newfound respect. It was different from the pity she had grown accustomed to. This was something else, a flicker of possibility. "Hey, Taylor," a voice called from behind. It was Mrs. Jenkins, a former teacher who had taken notice of Taylor's journey from the start. "That was brave. You spoke from the heart." There was sincerity in her gaze, and it lit a spark of hope deep inside Taylor. "Thank you." The words felt small, but they carried weight. It was a reminder that she was not so alone, not in the way she feared. Could this be the start of a transformation for others too? As the audience trickled out into the hall, Taylor caught snippets of conversations. Some shared their own experiences with bias, their silent struggles bubbling to the surface. It was as if her testimony had peeled back layers of fear, allowing others to voice their pain. But then, she heard a familiar voice, low and cutting. "It's just one story," a neighbor scoffed to another. "What does it even matter?" The comment gnawed her, a reminder that the battle wasn't just about her story, it was about changing perceptions in a town bitterly clinging to old beliefs. A swell of determination rose inside her. "Excuse me," she said, interrupting. The neighbor turned, eyes wide. "You may think it's just my story, but this is the story of so many who stood in silence. We won't be silent anymore." The neighbor huffed and turned away, but a few heads turned, intrigued. Was this the moment people began to shift from indifference to confrontation? As brandishing hope began to scatter like light, Jamal approached her, vulnerability etched across his young face. "Taylor, Jamal, I'm so sorry if I haven't always been there for you, you know," she trailed off, feeling the weight of the words she never had the courage to say. "No, it's not that," he replied, glancing around nervously, "but I need to tell you something." His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "I've been thinking about joining the Navy, too." Her heart surged, but confusion darted through her. "You? In the Navy? I want to make a difference." "I can't keep watching from the sidelines," he said, his eyes glowing with ambition and uncertainty. Taylor opened her mouth to respond, but the words tangled somewhere in her throat. This wasn't just about what had happened to her, this was a legacy that could ripple through their family, their community. This could change everything. "Jamal, it's a big commitment," she started. "I know, but maybe it's time for both of us to fight together." Her heart ached. Did she have the strength to support him? To enter another fight, a fight for her brother's dreams? Just then, the judge entered the room again. The moment of truth was about to unfold. Taylor took a deep breath, anxiety and hope merging in her chest. Did they have the courage to confront the truth together? As she faced the courtroom, a sense of purpose settled over her like armor. It felt heavier but infinitely more empowering. But would the fight truly advance? Would this battle extend beyond walls into real change? The judge took his seat, and silence enveloped the courtroom again. Taylor felt the shift. She could almost taste the tension in the air. A single heartbeat pooled in her ears as she braced for what was next, the weight of her words still settling in the minds of those who had witnessed her testimony. Jamal stood beside her, his youthful bravery palpable. The way he held himself felt different, more resolute. She glanced at him, a shared understanding passing between them. They were at the precipice of change, not just for themselves but for everyone waiting to break their silence. The judge nodded toward her. "Ms. Taylor, we'd like to hear from you one more time before we proceed with deliberation." Taylor stepped forward, her heart racing. She took a deep breath, steadying herself, and started to speak again. "Your Honor, I understand that my story might seem isolated. But it is not. It's woven into the fabric of countless lives in this community." Her voice trembled but grew firmer. "I've witnessed the struggle for dignity, for respect, and the urgent need for our voices to be heard." With each sentence, she felt emboldened. Her insecurities flickered away like a candle blown by the wind. "I know the power of silence. I grew up being just a face in the crowd, my pain swallowed by others' unwillingness to acknowledge it. But we can't keep hiding, not anymore. The gravity of her words seemed to resonate. The eyes in the room reflected stories of their own. Whether they had lived the same experiences or not, her vulnerability pulled them in, creating a sense of connection. In the back, she noticed several community members nodding, their expressions shifting from skepticism to understanding. As she concluded, a murmur erupted. People began to talk amongst themselves, some even casting sideways glances of appreciation at Taylor. Then, it happened. A deep voice rose from the back of the room. "She's right. We can't stay silent." It was Mr. Thompson, an older man known for his traditional views. Taylor turned, wide-eyed, as he stood with fists clenched. "I've seen too many good people suffer in silence, myself included. We need to change." The ripple of bravery surged through the room. More people joined in, sharing their own stories. Echoes of pain and resilience floated through the air as voices layered together, creating a powerful choir of experiences. Taylor's heart swelled with hope. This moment could be a transformation, a seismic shift if they kept pushing forward together. Jamal gripped her arm lightly, a fist of pride rising in his chest. "Look! They're standing with you," he whispered, voice teeming with energy. But right before it could fully bloom, Taylor's heart tightened. The town had always resisted change, its roots burrowing deep into age-old beliefs. Their thoughts could just as easily sway back into ignorance. She felt a wave of fear wash over her. Will this moment actually matter? She pondered, her resolve battling with a haunting doubt. As the voices grew louder, Taylor clenched her fists, uncertainty attempting to drown her spirit. She had taken a brave step, could she keep moving forward? With the rising outcry from the crowd, the judge's gavel came down once again, demanding order. "Enough!" he commanded. "We cannot deviate from the trial proceedings." Taylor swallowed hard, catching her breath. The sense of urgency pressed her. Would they keep fighting together, or would they retreat into their corners? Jamal leaned closer to her, whispering, "Whatever happens next, we fight for this, Tay, right?" As Taylor looked around the small community bursting with newfound bravery, a flame ignited in her. Did they have what it takes to face the backlash? Could they convert this catharsis into the change they yearned for? With determination woven into every beat of her heart, Taylor stood taller. "Not just for us. We do this for everyone." But just as clarity set in, a figure emerged from the back, and their shadow cast a long doubt through the room. Someone she never expected, standing in opposition. What did this mean for their fight? The theater of transformation was about to unveil its next chapter. What would happen when the reality of their fight collided with hidden truths? Taylor's breath hitched as her eyes locked onto the figure advancing through the crowd. It was her old high school adversary, Rachel, the embodiment of judgment wrapped in a facade of confidence. Rachel's presence thrummed with a certain energy, a mocking smile threatening to puncture the fragile moment they were trying to build. "Do you really think sharing your pain will make a difference?" Rachel's voice cut through the courtroom like a shard of glass. "You expect us to believe that just standing up and shouting makes it all better?" A chill swept through Taylor. Her heart raced. She had hoped for support, not this icy wave of doubt. Murmurs broke out anew among the crowd, uncertainty rippling through them like a gust of wind, coaxing the vocal flames to flicker. "Don't listen to her. We're here because we believe," shouted Ms. Alvarez from the front row, her voice ringing out fiercely, trying to douse the flames of dissent. Taylor could see the older woman's eyes bright with defiance. Others joined in, supportive voices pushing back against Rachel's cynicism. But Rachel stood strong, unyielding. "You think you're heroes for baring your hearts. What happens when the real world slaps you back down? You'll wish you had kept quiet." The laughter she'd drawn from some in the back was like barbs in Taylor's chest. Jamal squeezed her arm. "Stay strong, Tay, just breathe." Taylor wanted to. She wanted to manifest the courage bubbling within her, but Rachel's words dug deep. Were they really prepared for the fallout? "Ms. Taylor, I urge you to respond," the judge said. His voice was firm yet patient, grounding Taylor as she grappled with the rising tide of emotion and fear. "Rachel," she began, her tone low but gaining strength with each word. "I know it can feel easier to stay silent. But silence feeds shame and fear. What we're doing here isn't just about us or this moment. It's about every person who has ever thought no one would listen." She felt courage rise from the depths of her own uncertainty. "But what happens when the backlash comes?" Rachel shot back, crossing her arms defiantly. "What happens to your dreams when they're crushed under the weight of other people's intolerance?" "I say, bring it on," Taylor declared, her voice stronger now, fueled by an anger that had bubbled beneath the surface for too long. "We're no longer afraid. We have a choice to love and be loved. To stand together and engage instead of wish for change." The crowd was murmuring again. Some faces lit up with the spark of hope, while others were still clouded with doubt. Taylor's heart pounded in her chest as she realized that Rachel's attack was doing something unexpected. It was rallying them. "Yes. We can be stronger together," added Jamal, his voice cutting through the oppositional air with the confidence of someone who had fought his own battles. "We won't be silenced. Not by fear. Not by shame." Taylor locked eyes with Jamal, feeling a surge of gratitude. They had found support in unexpected places today, their narratives interwoven. The crowd began to chant their support softly, each word knotting them together, firm against the tide, but Rachel wasn't done. "You think they will stand by you when it gets tough? When the threat of losing everything looms over your heads? People don't want to change. They want to stay comfortable. Comfort isn't worth the cost of our silence." Taylor shot back, realizing that Rachel's challenge might be the very catalyst they needed. It struck a chord with the crowd, reigniting their fire. For a moment, the courtroom seemed suspended in time. The voices, the uncertainty, the resolve all swirled into a dizzying dance of emotions, clashing against one another like waves crashing on a rocky shore. Yet, woven into it was something Taylor hadn't anticipated. This battle wasn't just against fear and judgment, but an encounter with truth. Could they breach the chasm between past pain and future strength? Just as the energy reached its peak, another figure pushed through the doors, drawing all eyes. Was it another opponent or an ally? Hope and dread tangled within Taylor as she braced for the next revelation. What new truths would be uncovered in this battle for their voices? The figure that stepped through the doors was unexpected, and Taylor's heart raced as she struggled to process the sudden shift in the atmosphere. She had braced herself for yet another adversary, however, as the crowd shifted, a hushed whisper spread among them. It was Zoe, a former Navy SEAL, known for her fierce commitment to justice and her own history of fighting through adversity. She stood tall, her presence commanding the space, arms crossed and an unwavering look in her eyes. "Zoe!" Jamal exclaimed with a mix of surprise and gratitude, stepping forward to embrace her. The warmth of her support felt like a shield against the chill Rachel had cast over the room. "Not here to fight," Zoe said, her voice booming yet calm. "I'm here to stand with you. Sharing your pain won't be easy, but you won't be alone." The conviction in her words centered the room, as if they had suddenly gathered as one. Rachel rolled her eyes, clearly irked. "What's this? Another soldier of despair ready to preach resilience? What do you really know about courage?" Zoe's jaw tightened, but her demeanor remained steady. "I know that pain isn't a weakness, it's a part of survival. I know that strength is found in vulnerability," she responded, her voice a weapon of its own, cutting through the tension. "You think your judgment shakes us? We're here to transform these pains into something greater." The crowd erupted in applause, clapping and shouting in response to Zoe's presence. Taylor felt a wave of relief wash over her as the energy shifted yet again. Hope floated through the courtroom, tangible and electrifying. But among the cheers, a knot of fear still lingered in the pit of Taylor's stomach. Was she really ready for this fight? Taylor took a step forward, emboldened by Zoe's words. You're right, Rachel. The real world is harsh. But it's our choice how we respond to it. Are we going to let fear choke out our voices? Or are we going to shout louder? Her heart drummed in her chest as she felt the eyes of the room upon her, some filled with hope, others still unsure. Rachel kept her arms crossed, disdain simmering in her expression. Oh please, what do you think you can achieve here? You'll drown in your collective wailing. But an unexpected voice broke through the chaos. A man from the back stood up, his presence small but firm. It's not just about wailing, Rachel. It's about healing, showing up, and changing the narrative. The room went silent as he continued. I thought I was alone until I joined this group and saw the power of shared stories. Each voice matters. Each story matters. Silence expanded like a balloon, and then softly, almost timidly at first, the crowd began to chant again, we matter. We matter. The sound built like a wave, rising higher and higher. Soon, Taylor felt her own heart sink with the rhythm. You see. Zoe encouraged, a smile breaking over her serious demeanor. This is what happens when we stand together. You don't have to fight this battle alone. Emboldened by the energy in the room, Rachel scoffed but appeared momentarily shaken. Fine. But don't come crying to me when the world takes a bite out of you. Taylor met Rachel's gaze fiercely. We won T. Because we won T ever be silent again. This isn't the end, it's the beginning. The crowd surged with renewed hope. Taylor locked eyes with Zoe, who nodded in solidarity. Something shifted within her, a flicker of determination igniting new courage. As the chants deepened and the energy through the room grew electric, she felt a tug at her heart. Just then, a soft, hesitant voice rose from the outskirts. What about those of us who are still struggling? A young woman, perhaps no older than 18, stepped forward, her hands trembling at her sides. How do we find our voice? The room shifted in anticipation, eyes locking on the girl. Taylor felt that familiar knot in her stomach twist once more. How could they help her find that voice? Would their strength be enough? Could this moment hold the key to unleashing even more untold stories? The young woman stood there, uncertainty shadowing her face. Taylor could see her fear, a mirror of her own. The energy in the room shifted again, a collective breath was held, waiting for someone to answer. Taylor's heart raced. Zoe stepped forward, her powerful presence disarming. Everyone here has a story, and it begins with simply sharing. You don't have to have all the answers, she said, her eyes softening at the girl. Just speak from your heart. It's a process, and it's all right to be afraid. The girl nodded slightly but seemed lost. Taylor's mind raced. The truth was, she felt uncertain too. Would sharing bring relief or just open old wounds? But in the depths of her heart, she understood. Maybe the path wasn't about perfection, it was about authenticity. Can I try? Taylor found her voice, stepping into the silence, the weight of words bearing down lightly. When I first showed up here, I felt alone. I didn't know how to speak about my pain or even own it. I hid it away. But when others shared their stories, it helped me see that I wasn't alone, that others were feeling the same. The young woman's gaze darted over her. Slowly, a flicker of recognition crossed her face, and hope began to glow within her. Yet Taylor continued, talking is hard. It feels like there's a huge weight on your chest, but when I finally spoke, it was like taking off a heavy coat I didn't even realize I was wearing. I found my voice through the fear. Maybe that's where your journey starts too. Just try. The energy in the room thickened with possibility. It was palpable. The girl looked at Zoe and back at Taylor, her expression shifting. But what if nobody listens? She asked, the quiver returning to her voice. Zoe knelt down, bringing her eyes to the girl's level. Then we'll create a world where everyone has a seat at the table. We are listening. This is a place where your voice has power. The crowd erupted again, encouragement echoing like thunder, their solidarity weaving around the girl like a warm blanket. You matter. You matter. They chanted. With every repetition, the atmosphere thickened with unity, and then, the girl stepped forward, took a deep breath, and opened her mouth to speak. For a moment, it was as if time paused. Taylor could feel the collective heartbeats, they shared the anticipation. But before the girl could utter a word, a sharp sound abruptly shattered the moment. A loud clap resonated from the back of the room. Rachel leaned against the wall, arms crossed defiantly, a mocking smile playing on her lips. What a beautiful moment of delusion, she sneered. This isn't a fairy tale. You're all just going to end up facing the reality of this world, and it won't be kind. The girl faltered, her brave attempt to share floundering under Rachel's derision. Taylor felt a rush of anger surge within her. You don't know what you're talking about. She shouted, confronting Rachel and her venomous words. The courtroom fell silent again, tension spiraling as each person absorbed what had just been said. The air felt electric, thick with emotion, fear blending with fury and hope. Stop letting her take your power away. Stand firm. Zoe punctuated the moment, her voice breaking through the simmering hostility. What would they choose to do next? Would they allow one voice to silence them all? As the young girl looked around at the crowd, uncertainty mixed with determination danced across her features. Maybe I can try, she whispered, taking a step forward, but would she find the courage to go on? That single step into the unknown held the weight of countless stories waiting to be shared. Would this moment change everything for them all? The room held its breath as the young girl steadied herself, her fingers trembling at her sides. Taylor's heart beat faster, echoing the uncertainty and fear that swept across the space. Everyone's eyes became a gentle embrace, drawing her in, giving her the strength to speak. I've never shared this before, the girl finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. She glanced at Zoe, who nodded encouragingly, then at Taylor, who smiled, urging her on. I guess I've always felt like my pain wasn't enough. A palpable silence settled over the group, filled with empathy and understanding. The girl took a deep breath, pushing through the weight of her hesitation. I lost my dad last year. The world just kept going, and I didn't know how to keep up. Taylor could see her battling tears, the girl's face shifting through vulnerability and strength. I wanted to be strong for my family, like he was. But I felt so lost inside. I just don't know how to be together, how to heal. With each word, Taylor watched the girl's courage grow, rippling through the crowd. They leaned in, connected by the shared experience of loss, grief, and the struggle to find a way through it. Taylor's heart swelled. Sometimes, the girl continued, I feel like I'm carrying a heavy weight, like I'm stuck in this fog, and every time I try to talk about it, it just feels so raw. I'm scared people will say I'm being dramatic or that I just need to move on. She paused, taking a shaky breath. But I don't want to be alone in this anymore. The room erupted with affirmation, voices harmonizing as they shouted, you are not alone. We're here with you. Their words washed over her like a warm tide, lifting her spirits, coaxing out the heartache she felt buried deep within. Rachel watched with disdain, her arms still crossed, but now there was tension in her posture. The girl's courage seemed to chip away at her harsh facade, and Taylor felt a twinge of hope. Maybe Rachel could find redemption too, maybe even she could discover a way to share her own pain instead of inflicting it on others. As the crowd continued to support the girl, Taylor saw the power of their words transform her. She stood taller, the fog of indecision starting to clear. I want to share more if it's okay. The girl asked. Absolutely. Zoe shouted, clapping her hands together, igniting more applause. The girl began to recount the moments with her dad, the laughter, the lessons learned, the love they had built. With every word, she embraced her memories, and though the grief lingered like a shadow, it felt lighter now. dissipating around the edges. Tears slid down her cheeks, but they were no longer solely signs of sorrow. They marked a release, a step toward healing. This raw authenticity resonated with everyone present. Their hearts beat faster, thumping in solidarity. "Your grief is valid," Taylor called out, echoing the crowd. "It's part of who you are. Share all of it." As the young girl found her rhythm, the energy in the room shifted again, thicker and more robust than before. Hope buzzed, becoming a palpable force. But just as the atmosphere crescendoed with support, Rachel took a step forward, her voice cutting through the warmth. "You think this changes anything? The world will still judge you." Taylor's stomach dropped. The moment hung heavily, the challenge echoing through the air. Would they let Rachel's words shatter what they had built? Or would they stand together in defiance? "But," Taylor shouted, filling the space with defiance. "You don't have to let anyone else define your power." The room vibrated with agreement, but Rachel's eyes hardened at the crowd. Taylor could see the tension building within Rachel's clenched fists. What would happen next? Would they give in to darker tides, or swim against the current? All around, the question lingered: could they all transform their pain into something powerful enough to drown out the judgment? Would they choose acceptance over doubt? The answers hung in the air like suspended whispers, waiting for the next brave soul to speak. Taylor's heart raced. The air crackled with energy and unspoken tensions swirled like storm clouds overhead. She felt fear mix with an exhilarating sense of purpose. Not today, she thought fiercely, eyes glued to Rachel. Rachel clenched her fists tighter. The challenge in her eyes sparked curiosity among the crowd, the same way a match strikes fire. "You think you can change what people think? They'll always see you as weak," Rachel spat. The girl who had just shared her pain flinched, the weight of Rachel's words hitting her like a sudden gust. A hush fell over the crowd, people holding their breath, wondering if Rachel would unleash more venom or if they could rally against her negativity, but instead of backing down, the girl squared her shoulders. "I'm not weak," she said, her voice gaining strength. "I'm learning to carry my pain. That doesn't mean it defines me." Cheers erupted from the audience, joy bursting through the tension. Taylor caught a glimpse of Rachel's expression, a flicker of surprise mixed with contempt. It was fascinating, watching the two collide like thunder and lightning, illuminating the depths of their hearts. Rachel strode back a step, obviously agitated, but Taylor sensed fissures beginning to form in her armor. "You think you're special because you shared something?" She scoffed, but there was a quiver in her voice. The girl responded softly, her tone unwavering. "I'm special like everyone else here. We all carry something heavy. This isn't about being special, it's about being human." "Yes!" Zoe shouted, her excitement infectious. The crowd echoed her agreement, voices rising in a steadfast chorus. Rachel's eyes darted around the room, trying to read the shifting dynamics. The support and acceptance surrounding the girl seemed to chip away at Rachel's harshness. "This is dreamland." She barked, but now it lacked conviction. "Maybe it's time you woke up," Taylor said, heart pounding, her gaze fixed on Rachel. "You don't have to be this way. It's okay to feel vulnerable, you know." Rachel froze, a flicker of vulnerability crossing her face, almost imperceptible but there nonetheless. "I don't need your pity," she snapped back, yet it felt weaker, a facade cracking before them. "Then how about empathy?" Taylor offered, her voice softer. "It doesn't have to be about pity. Just understanding. We all have our struggles." The crowd shifted again, holding tightly to hope. They had come together to lift each other, standing as witnesses to the struggle, embracing the full spectrum of human emotion. It was more powerful than fear, more resilient than judgment. Rachel was looking more lost than ever, and Taylor could see it. She could see Rachel grappling with something deeper, anger, sadness, even confusion. Perhaps, beneath it all, there was the same longing for connection that drove the others to gather. Maybe, Rachel hesitated, her wall feeling less secure. Sensing the opening, Taylor stepped forward. You don't have to be alone in your anger. We're here too. Just like we stood beside her, we'll stand beside you. The room held its breath again, waiting. The collective disbelief mirrored Taylor's own. Would Rachel lower her guard? Could she let go of her resentment and join them? Rachel stood still, a storm of emotions swirling behind her eyes. They could see her beginning to unravel, layers shedding like autumn leaves. Taylor could feel all that pent-up pain, all that fear. It was a moment of truth. Would Rachel embrace it or flee back into her shell? Time stretched, and the question hung thick in the air, challenging. What would happen when someone finally decided to face their pain? Would they finally find their own power? As Rachel remained silent, the room thrummed with anticipation. What was she waiting for? In that moment, they all knew something had to break. Would it be the tension or Rachel's barriers? Whatever it was, they were ready, united, and unyielding. Rachel's breath came in quick bursts as she stood there, caught in a web of emotions. Taylor could see it clearly, the gears turning in Rachel's mind, the struggle raging like a wild storm. She didn't know if Rachel would break through or if she'd lash out again. It was a fragile moment, and everyone felt the weight of it. Suddenly, Rachel's shoulders sagged just a bit, almost imperceptibly, as if the mantle of hostility was being lifted, even just for a moment. You think standing here and talking about feelings will change anything? Her voice was softer now, but still tinged with defiance. You really believe it's that simple? It's not simple, Taylor replied, her heart racing. But it's a start. It's showing up, being real. Look at us. We're here, all of us, sharing what hurts us. We all want to be heard. The crowd shifted, leaning in as if they could bridge the chasm between Rachel and the rest. They wanted to pull her into their circle of understanding, to tear down the wall she had built around her heart, but it was clear that Rachel wasn't there yet. Maybe you feel alone, Rachel, the girl interjected again, stepping closer to where Rachel stood, her eyes now blazing with determination. I get that. I spent so long thinking no one would understand my pain. But look around. We're all fighting our battles. You're not the only one. Rachel's gaze flitted about, searching the faces of the crowd, the solidarity evident in their eyes. It was a mirror, perhaps too painful to look into for too long. You think I want your understanding? She snapped, and Taylor could see the tightness creeping back into Rachel's expression. I think you're scared, Taylor replied, her voice gentle but steady. And that's okay. We all are. But we're standing here, willing to fight for you, not against you. We don't want to push you away. We want to lift each other up. An awkward silence fell over the room. Rachel's eyes widened, processing the kindness washing over her like a gentle tide. Taylor caught the slight tremor in Rachel's hands as she clenched and unclenched her fists, a silent battle waging within her. Suddenly, Rachel's veneer peeled back a little further, her voice cracked. You think I'm scared? I'm not scared. But the tremor hinting at something deeper lingered, as if the words were more of a protest against her own truth than a declaration. Then why are you fighting so hard against us? It was a simple question, but it hung heavy in the air. The crowd absorbed the challenge, holding that breath once more, hanging on Rachel's next words as if they were the key to the universe. You think I want to let you in? Rachel's voice dropped, a blend of anger and confusion. You don't know what I've been through. You have no idea what it feels like to be left behind, to be reduced to just a label. But we do know. We've all felt the weight of those labels, the girl said softly, stepping even closer. You're more than just your fear. You have a voice, Rachel. And it matters. Something died in Rachel's eyes, but in its place, a spark glimmered. It was small, but it was there, a hint of vulnerability piercing through the armor of isolation. And what if I don't want to talk? What if I don't want to let you in? Then that's your choice. But you don't have to face it all alone, Taylor urged, feeling the collective urge of the crowd to embrace her. Take a step back. Just breathe. We all want to hear your story. The clock ticked loudly, the seconds dragging on, and Taylor felt the intensity rise in the room. A single tear slipped down Rachel's cheek, and she swiped it away quickly. You really think this matters? Yes. The crowd echoed, their voices blending into a tidal wave of support. In that moment, something shifted, an invisible bridge forming where walls once stood. Taylor could almost feel the hope rising like a chorus, begging Rachel to cross over and accept it. But no one could force her. The decision was Rachel's to make, and time seemed to stretch while they all awaited her response. With everything hanging in the balance, would Rachel finally take that leap of faith, or would she retreat further into her shell? What lay ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: it was no longer just Rachel's battle. It was theirs, but would she share the struggle? With that thought, the crowd held their breath again, hearts racing as they braced for her answer. Rachel stood there, the courtroom suddenly feeling like an ocean of uncharted territory. Every eye in the room was on her, each heartbeat a reminder of the collective support surrounding her. The vulnerability of it all stirred a whirlwind inside, but as Taylor's words echoed in her mind, a part of her wanted to break free from the turmoil. Do you really want to hear my story? Rachel finally murmured, her voice thin and wavering. Silence enveloped the courtroom, anticipation hanging thick in the air. You think it's easy to just share? Tears brimmed in her eyes, their visibility a sign of surrendering to her emotions. Yes. Came the chorus of voices, firm and resolute. We're here. We want to hear you. Rachel felt a sharp inhale mix with exasperation. She had always prided herself on strength, on standing tall amid adversity. But with every supportive gaze, a warm light began piercing the shadows that concealed her heart. Fine, she finally relented, voice quivering. But don't expect fireworks or endless inspiration. My truth isn't pretty. No one's expecting perfection, Taylor replied, her voice soothing, like a steady breeze calming a storm. It's just your truth. Rachel's shoulders slumped as she studied the faces before her. She gathered her thoughts, the collective encouragement pushing against the walls built around her. Okay, she said, her resolve growing with every heartbeat, I grew up always feeling like I had to be the best. It was like being on a tightrope. One misstep and she shuddered, feeling the memory wash over her. But it wasn't just about being competitive. It was a need to prove I was worth something. A need to feel seen. With every word, the room quieted, hanging on to her story as if it were the last gasp of breath. But the more I struggled, the more I pushed people away. I've watched friendships turn cold and lived in this echo chamber of my own making, Rachel admitted, tears streaming down her cheeks now, cracking the facade she had worn with bitterness. I thought I could just bury it, pretend I was unaffected. But the truth is I've been lost for a long time, and I don't know how to really connect anymore. The crowd leaned in, the bond of shared pain knitting tightly among them. Isolation can feel so thick, can't it? Taylor murmured, and Rachel nodded, the acknowledgement of a fellow human forming a tether. I didn't know how to be vulnerable, Rachel continued, voice trembling. I was afraid that if I showed my true self, I'd be ridiculed or judged. I thought my anger kept me safe. But now, I see that it only distanced me from people who might care. That's brave, Rachel, one of the onlookers called out, voice filled with warmth. Rachel felt warmth spread in her chest, the realization of how long she had been yearning for connection flooding over her. I didn't come here to find redemption. I came here to avoid judgment, and it almost broke me instead, she admitted, her voice now steadying with newfound resolve. It's never too late, Zoe encouraged from the side, her presence a reassuring anchor. I want to try again. I want to find my voice, Rachel declared, standing taller, each word spilling forth like a rush of water breaking free from a dam. I want to help others who feel as lost as I did. I want us to stand together. A wave of relief washed over Taylor, knowing that their collective voice was gaining strength, drawing people closer into the circle of healing. Behind her, Rachel's own shame began to dissolve into something more profound: resolve. "We stand with you, Rachel." Someone from the crowd shouted. Rachel smiled through her tears, looking at the encouragement plastered across a sea of faces that were no longer strangers. Taylor felt emboldened by the transformation taking place before her. They were building something powerful together, a community knit together by vulnerability and readiness to embrace each other's truths. Jamal stood next to Taylor, a proud smile stretching across his young face. "See? When we unite, change is possible," he exclaimed, excitement ringing in his voice. Now, the atmosphere pulsed with hope, fingers of connection stretching into every corner of the room. Taylor could see her community rising, emerging from the depths of isolation and into a brighter, more connected existence. A connection that had long been lost was finally being rediscovered, and in that moment, they became more than individuals. They became a collective force. "Change begins with us," Rachel continued, her voice firm, full of newfound grit. "These stories matter because they remind us we're not alone." The crowd erupted in applause, the walls of doubt crumbling even further. Taylor looked at Rachel, gratefulness swelling in her heart. They had transformed pain into power. Together they would forge ahead, sowing seeds of courage and understanding into the very fabric of their community. As the applause settled into murmurs of renewed purpose, Taylor took a deep breath, heart swelling in her chest. She turned to the crowd. "Let us keep sharing," she urged, a call to action rippling through the room. "Let us keep fighting for each other." United, they embraced their stories, every experience melding into a tapestry of resilience. With hope echoing in the air, they could finally step forward into a future where their voices and struggles would not be silenced but celebrated. This was only the beginning. They had unlocked the door to transformation, and now it was time to usher in a new chapter of understanding. Believe in one another. Believe in your journey. This is how change happens. And as the last echoes of Rachel's story faded into the warmth of communal strength, they all knew something profound had shifted between them. Together, it was not the end. It was just the beginning of their heartwarming fight for recognition, validation, and above all, a voice. Now, we need you to take action. You need to subscribe now to the channel to keep following these incredible transformations. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support stories like this. Comment below and share your feelings about this powerful ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Your support is what fuels this community. Let's keep the momentum going.